My name is John Passfield. I'm going to read from my novel, which I will hold up here. There it is. Bethune, the Only Person Alive in the World, a novel by John Passfield. That's a picture of Dr. Norman Bethune. The historical Dr. Norman Bethune painted that picture. And I think the eyes are the most fascinating feature. He knew himself. He knew how fierce he was. These other two videos I've done, I mentioned the idea of action hyphen uh, thought and thought hyphen action. And he was a man who didn't perform an action without thinking about it as significant in terms of his beliefs and ideas, and didn't have a thought without wanting to put it into action. And I think he captured that in that painting of himself. That's the kind of guy he is. I'm calling this, I'll just stop there and read the summary on the back of the novel. Here it is, and then I'll go into the topic of this video. Young Canadian doctor Norman Bethune sets up a practice which he hopes will lead to money and prestige. However, his social conscience leads him on a journey through the Canada of the Great Depression, the Spain of the Spanish Civil War, and the China of the Chinese Civil War and the Japanese invasion. Ultimately, the journey becomes a quest to understand the world in which he has found himself living, to develop a compassionate response to that world, and to discover the essence of himself as a human being. So there's a lot packed in there. He lived in three societies: the Canada into which he was born, the Spain into which he plunged, and the China into which he plunged. All of those societies in the 1930s, a time of great turmoil in the world. And then to understand one society, to develop a response to that society which suits your own sense of what a response should be, an ideal response, and then to figure out the essence of yourself as a human being. What has my living in this society and acting this way made me as a person? What have I made myself? So, okay, now on to the topic of today's video. Incident and People is what I'm calling it as a short title. A longer title might be Experiences that Serve as Images. And of course, images suggest meaning. So we all go through experiences, and many of them, I had breakfast this morning, just an experience, that's all. But some of them become significant, significant enough to serve as touchstone images, images that suggest that this is what life is like for us. And that'll be illustrated as I read from the novel. So the structure of the novel, 16 chapters, 3 of them in Canada, 5 of them in Canada, three different segments, you might say. 5 chapters in Canada, 5 chapters in Spain, 5 chapters in China, and then a 16th in China, in which he gets infected and suffers the consequences. So that's the chapter of the novel. Chapter of the First of all, I'll mention the structure of the novel. It's in sets of 5 chapters each. There are 5 chapters in Canada, and there are 5 chapters in Spain, and then 5 chapters in China, and then a final chapter in which he gets infected in China and suffers the consequences. The structure of each chapter is this. There are 8 segments of action in each chapter. He's actually doing something in every chapter. Now, as he's doing something, he's thinking, and he's thinking at different levels of his mind. So I'm going to isolate one of those levels of thinking today and read from that. And this is the level at which he's thinking of his experiences as images of significance, images that tell him what society's all about, what his own life is all about. So let me just read from something I wrote as I was reading these passages over. Inner thought. I will read from some of these inner thought segments in this video. What I'm going to read today are passages of information that become images as the main character, Dr. Norman Bethune, thinks about them. He thinks of these images while he is living his active life. And so these items of information in his life, what he has heard about, what he has seen, what he has done, become images that reinforce his sensibility, that make him more certain about what he is doing and what he wants to do in future. There are 4 segments of these touchstone images in each chapter. There are 64 such images in the novel. Well, I'm not going to read all 64 in this video. I'm going to read 15 of what I think of as significant images in the life of the main character. So further explanation of what I'm talking about will become clear as I simply start reading them. First one I've selected is on page 5 and spilling over onto page 6. And here is an event that happened to him, an experience that became an image for him, that stuck in his mind, that told him what life was like and what he wanted to do about it. The porch light is yellow. It shines on an anguished face. He pulls the door open and a man flinches as if he expects to be met with anger. He holds his hand up with a wrinkled dollar in front of his chest. My wife is going into labor. I didn't know where to take her. She's in a boxcar with 2 of our kids. Someone said you might help. He takes the dollar out of the man's hand, folds it, and stuffs it in the pocket of the man's shirt. Put your dollar away. Your money's no good here. How far along is she now? He steps aside and holds the door open. Come in, it's cold out there. Come in while I get my things. She's in her boxcar? That means there's no heat. No running water either. If there's time, we'll take her to the hospital in my car. At any rate, we'll do the best we can. So an incident, an event, an experience that becomes an image that sticks in his mind, tells him what he thinks about life. Here's another one, page 7. She clutches a little red purse, so small, seems as if it belongs to her child. Perhaps it does. Perhaps that's all she has to keep her money in. Do you know the word tuberculosis? Do you understand what that means? She doesn't indicate one way or another. It's caused by substandard living conditions. Her face is as blank as blank. She doesn't seem as if she understands. She squeezes the purse in her hand. She looks around at the child who is lying still on the couch. The child is breathing steadily. The chest slowly rises and falls. A long, deep sleep would do her some good right now. Is your husband coming home soon? She clutches the purse tighter still, small and silk and red. Little tassels that used to be gold or maybe white. Oh, money. Is that what you're thinking? No, what I gave her is yours, for free. You don't need your purse. Doesn't matter what you can pay. I'll leave some more here in this bottle for when she wakes up. A teaspoonful of water and have her drink it slowly, not in a gulp. The little red purse between us, clutched in her hands. I think your girl will be all right. She just needs time and sleep. Can you make the water hot? It will help to dissolve the syrup. Have you any more coals for the fire? Will your husband be coming home soon? Is he at work? Well, of course, this is the Depression, and maybe there is no husband. Maybe he has no work. Maybe there are no more coals. Well, that sears into the mind of a person like Dr. Norman Bethune, who, had a chance to be a society doctor, rich and successful and famous and so on, but was bothered by something like this, by these experiences that he had, or in some cases heard about. I'm looking for page 32 here as I talk. And so let's have a look at another one. Late at night, operating theater in Montreal. A woman with a tumor in the lower abdomen. Too dangerous for the doctors in Hartford, not willing to take the risk. So she came to me. A long and complicated operation. I always start with the time that is on the clock. A surgeon is a craftsman and an artisan. A craftsman with the soul of the creative artist, bound by the rigid and execrable laws of a human body. Granted none of the liberties of those who work in wood or metal or stone. I work as quickly as I can to shorten the time under anesthesia and to reduce the force of the shock. Important to keep things moving. If I don't win my race with the clock, she could lose a leg. So here's a doctor who took on risky operations for patients who came to him and said, the others won't help me. They said, just live with it or suffer the consequences. Well, more experiences as imagery in a man who is kind of building up his sense of who he is and how he's going to respond to the world. Page 35. He takes the paintbrush in his hand. Late at night, some pots of paint left over from the afternoon. Told the others I'd clean them up, but I let them sit there next to the sink while I read and thought. The shattered Spanish mountain tops. I use the same pots of paint that the kids all use. Why don't I paint the same kinds of pictures? Do I know what the kids don't know? Do I feel what the kids don't feel? The blood bespattered faces of the dead. Actually, the kids are smarter than we are. The kids can sense what the adults feel. They know that the world is coming at them with the speed of light. They know they'll all be here when we are all gone. Comrades who fought for freedom and the future world. He dips his paintbrush in the can and draws a line. So some of those lines are from poems of the historical Dr. Norman Bethune. In the novel, if you had it in front of you, they'd be in italics, the historical Norman Bethune's lines. And then some of them are mine, sort of boiled down and recast after I'd read all the research information. But seeing himself in the third person, a he, to get outside yourself and look at yourself objectively, it's very blunt and could be cold and cruel, but it also is a truth-facing mental exercise, to just see yourself as others see you, using an old phrase, to see yourself as you see yourself. When you kind of strip away the subjective and look at yourself, here's what I am, here's what I'm doing. Am I happy with this? Page 40. Two old doctors and a faded painting in a hospital waiting room, or maybe a pair of statues in a quadrangle cast in bronze, gray hair, furrowed brows, solemn beards. That little girl's right lung is in a state of abscess. It would be a pretty chancy operation to remove the lung of a 10-year-old child. The new young fellow wants to try it, but I keep telling him no. One bronze head leans in towards the other, frosty breath from the lips of a statue. Well, I sure wouldn't want to chance it. I can agree with you on that. So many things can go wrong in cases like these. Better to resign oneself to the living of life as it is. A thumb in the pocket of his waistcoat, an exhalation of frosty breath. I'll tell the little girl's parents that there's nothing we can do. Another cold day for the statues in the quad. Well, this is how he saw doctors older than himself, frozen in their practices of years ago, afraid to take chances, which you had to do, he figured, to do something new and good and better. And don't just tell patients, I'm sorry, there's nothing we can do. That wasn't his kind of medicine. Page 41 is another one. I'm just flipping a page here of page numbers. But I'll go on with page 41. Well, he lived in a society, the Canada in the 1930s. Montreal, St. Lawrence Boulevard at Craig Street. A line of mounted horsemen moving slowly. The crowd of demonstrators backing slowly away. Milk for our children, bread for our tables. We need jobs. Helmets, shields, truncheons. The horses tugging at the reins, eager to charge. An occasional demonstrator trips and falls. Shoulder flashes on the riders read, Police, Montreal. A bullhorn crackles loudly. Disperse quietly to your homes and no one will be hurt. This demonstration is being conducted without a permit. Return to your homes. The horses break into a trot. Someone falls. A rock is thrown. A whistle unleashes the power of the law. Truncheons, handcuffs, paddy wagons, bricks, rocks, blood. St. Lawrence Boulevard in Montreal. Well, Canada, a pretty peaceful nation compared to the Spain of the 1930s and the China of the 1930s, but still some turmoil in Canada. And I guess the old question, which side are you on, occurred to Bethune. What are you going to do about this? As a peaceful person, as a doctor, as a surgeon, what are you going to do? Not pick up a rock and throw it at a policeman, but what can you do to help in a situation that is clearly not right for the citizens of Canada, for the people of the world? Page 52, another event that becomes a significant image, that becomes an idea in the mind. The doctor leans over his patient, the body of a child, stretched out on the operating table, rescued from the ruins of a bombed-out building. This is in Spain. How beautiful the body, how perfect its parts, with what precision it moves. This boy must be 5 or 6. Was it a house or was it a store? Was anyone brought in with him? How obedient, proud, and strong. I wonder if his parents are still alive. People get buried in the ruins. You can hear their cries sometimes when they can't be reached. How terrible when torn. The little flame of life sinks lower, flickering quietly and gently. Check the anesthetic. Another scalpel. We'll need more blood in a minute. He's not lost yet. It makes his protest against extinction, a candle clinging to the last of life, and then goes out. Between air raids the other day, I saw a mother buying a tricycle in a shop. Well, some of those lines are from the historical Norma Bethune, and they're in italics, and I don't mention that in the novel, but I put it in my journal. I don't plagiarize, but I want to give credit to what a beautiful writer Dr. Norman Bethune was. He concentrated on living life rather than writing about life, but he could have been a really high level writer because he wrote so vividly. Beautiful writer. The other thing is, like, talk about an image of optimism. This is the Spanish Civil War bombs raining down, a lull between air raids, and a mother buys a tricycle in a shop. Now, if that isn't optimism amid chaos, what is, eh? So, significant images, events that become images in the mind, images that tell us, summarize for us in crystal clear imagery what life is all about. Page 61, still in Spain. The operating room at the Palace Hotel. Crystal chandeliers like an orchard, heavy with glass. Gold-framed mirrors that used to glitter when the revelers danced at the ball. From every country in Europe. 8 tables side by side, 2 doctors at each table, an anesthetist and a nurse, left their wives and families. Multiple perforations of the intestine. A soldier shot through the abdomen and left to die. And the pride of their young strength. An anti-fascist German soldier shot through the thigh with a dum-dum bullet. The exit hole as large as a clenched fist. An anti-tetanus serum and a blood transfusion. Fighting and dying for an ideal of human freedom. A pole shot through the shoulder. An x-ray shows the doctor where to probe. The palace operating room on a busy day. So life as it was, life as maybe it should be, a ballroom with people dancing. And life as it became in the 1930s, a ballroom as an operating room with blood on the floor of the ballroom. Another image, a very clear, crystal clear, physical image. Page 63. A hospital in Madrid. Heavy fighting today, exhausting work. He tries to catch a couple of winks, the steady tack, tack, tack of the machine guns. The sound comes through the heavy shutters. The sound comes through the thick oak door. The gunfire is almost continuous. It's the clear, cold winter air. Makes it sound like the fighting is at the end of the street, like the front in 1915. The machine guns are taking up the slack. A bit of a lull until the bombers reload and return. Brace yourself for the onslaught. If we hear them drone, we'll be in for a busy night. So Bethune, in the thick of the fighting in Madrid, mostly bombing by fascist forces of the democratic forces and civilians on the ground, but in the thick of the fighting but not fighting, as a doctor. And if the bombers come back, we'll have a busy night at the operating table. Okay, on then to page 68. And another image that sears itself into the mind of a person like Bethune. But we all think in images, and we all have images that are significant images, that are operative images, that kind of generate action in our lives, and that we use to measure touchstone images. We can measure any event or action against these key images in order to get a sort of a sense of the meaning of our lives, an understanding of this particular day, month, year in our lives as measured against these images. Here's another one, page 68. A child of 10, a little boy, bare feet cut and bleeding, sitting rubbing his foot at the edge of the road. Hundreds of peasants flow by in an endless stream. Where did Daddy go? He was carrying my brother and sister. I don't know where he is. Nearby, an old lady lies prone, gigantic swollen legs, open varicose ulcers, battered linen sandals. The boy crouches down beside her. When will Grandma awake? When will Daddy come back? Where's everybody going? The road is sharp, white flint. Nowhere to get a drink. People struggled down to the creek, but it was dry. Well, there's an image of the countryside in Spain during the Spanish Civil War. Uh, Chapter 8, page 71, another one. Half awake and half asleep, Sorensen at the wheel, a bumpy stretch in the road, head jostling back and forth from a lump in the tire. He adjusts his rolled up jacket against the window. Perhaps someday the world will be what I want it to be. Rolling along in a half-ton truck purchased in Marseille, driving back to Barcelona. Perhaps someday the world will be a place where humans can live. 2 Electrobox refrigerators running on 125 volts each. 20 batteries, a dynamo, and a gas engine to charge the batteries, all to be installed on our return. Sunshine, clouds, blue skies, a gentle rain. Nice to have a chance to close the eyes. He rolls the window down in hopes of a breeze. Well, that's an image of Bethune doing something. He invented, as I mentioned in another video and as is detailed in the novel, the mobile blood transfusion unit. They'd had blood transfusions earlier that had already been invented. Of course, automobiles, panel trucks had been invented, so had refrigerators. But he put them all together. He was the first, a Canadian on the world stage, to invent the mobile blood transfusion unit. People died not so much from their wounds, he felt, but from the wounds becoming infected before they could be treated. So he decided to go where the wounded were, a mobile blood transfusion unit. That's his contribution to the betterment of life here on Earth. Let's go to page 87, skipping a whole lot of many things in the novel, but here's one more. This is when he is in China, I believe. Yes. No, still Spain. Doesn't matter. He rolls over in his sleep, fragments of thoughts inside his head. The negation of the negation, not a flat circular movement, a turn and return on itself. Those are words of Bethune. They're in italics. The historical Bethune. A dead end as blind as any brick wall he has ever come up against. The union of life and death. The medium is vivified. Desperate for an idea. The emergence of the new from the old, the retaining of the old within the new. His pillow is drenched in sweat. The open window brings no relief. A man without an idea at the end of the world. While mixing words from the historical Norman Bethune in italics and my own words in non-italics, Arabic, I guess we call it, don't we? But things went sour for him in Spain. Things were ideal, a chaotic situation, but he managed to create an ideal response to that situation. But then it went sour for him. But that's detailed in another video, detailed in the novel. So we'll just leave it at that. So, a man at the end of the world without an idea. Well, he was a man of ideas. The new idea was China. Let's go to China and do some good there. China in turmoil, people suffering, the Chinese Civil War, the Japanese invasion of China, what to do. Okay, let's go to page 92 for another event that becomes a significant image in the mind of a man like Dr. Norman Bethune. They are lying on scraps of straw on a cold stone floor, crawling with lice, bloodied uniforms covered in dirt, washed out bandages of faded rags, one blanket to cover 3, boiled millet once a day while they wait to die. The family is kind, but they are almost starving themselves. A lantern in the darkness. One of them stirs and opens his eyes. A man is stooping and bathing my wounds. The warm water on my legs is almost heavenly. A doctor from Canada, someone says. There are so many of us to care for. Hundreds of wounded lie sick in this village, only miles from the Japanese. What good can a doctor from Canada possibly do? Well, that's a long way from the society doctor, Dr. Norman Bethune in Canada, who is living the good life, despite the depression even. Here he is as a volunteer in China, bathing someone's legs in a remote hut amid the Civil War and the Japanese invasion. But hey, that's an image. That's an event in his life, an experience that becomes an image of the ideal response to the agony of the world. Let's go to page 107. Just a few more of these that I want to read in this video. How ideal was it? Again, a world in turmoil, but the response to the world is the ideal that he's seeking. You can't necessarily make the world perfect, but you can make something in the world better. And here's a passage that kind of shows what happened when Bethune tried to make some things in the world better. 107. Gathering around a fire late in the evening, shadows on the wall, candles here and there among the crowd, pale stars, cold air, silent and thoughtful, everyone tired and everyone calm at the end of the day. Of course, they've been operating all day on wounded soldiers, exhausted, but here they are. Someone calls out for a song. A little girl, a nurse in training, sets her candle down and stands amid the group. We are an oppressed nation. We must resist our oppressors. Only by fighting can we continue to exist. Oh, a revolutionary song. My interpreter whispers the words. I applaud with the others. Now it seems to be my turn. I sing a song that we used to sing in Spain. No pasaran, no pasaran, no pasaran. Basically, they shall not pass. Or a chant in a song. Spanish words, Canadian accent, Chinese ears. Tired and happy, happy and tired. Content because I am doing what I want to do. Why shouldn't I be happy? I am needed desperately here. No wish and no desire is unfulfilled. I am treated as a comrade. 5:30 in the morning until 9 or 10 at night. Under the blanket to sleep the sleep of the tired and fulfilled. Then up again in a day of saving lives. The fire crackles as 300 sing a song. And then just one more, as I say, I've selected 15 from among 64 of these events that become images. And here's the last one I'll read. A mud hut on a hillside, crack of sunrise, time to load the supplies onto the mules. The doctor opens the lid of a wooden box. I'll have to write another letter home. What is the China Aid Council doing for China? We have exhausted the supply of elastic bandages. I have exactly 27 tubes of cutgat left. I have 2 pounds of carbolic acid. Are you sending more doctors or technicians? You might have more medical supplies. I have 1 knife and 6 artery forceps. All the rest I have distributed. 5 months without any word is a long time. I have 2.5 pounds of chloroform. After that is distributed, we will operate without anesthetics. So as ideal as that little scene on the mountainside in the meadow is, with all of the exhausted people singing after they've had a very busy medical day, life goes on. And of course, the problem was getting money and supplies into a war-torn China. And when he ran out of supplies, well, he would give them to other doctors, Chinese doctors, people whom he trained himself to be doctors, and worked himself without enough medical supplies. And of course, he became infected, and that's part of the action story, which I won't read today. So, events, experiences in our lives that become imagery. True of all of us. Books aren't about people other than ourselves. Books are about people who might lead more active lives than ourselves, like Dr. Norman Bethune, certainly more active life than I have led. But the thinking is the same, right? We think in images at our deepest levels, and those images tell us what society is and what we are in the way we respond to society. So in a minute, I conclude. Now, I want to read 2 passages from my journal and then mention some interesting websites. So I'll just mention, I've done this in other videos, but I write 3 books when I write. Obviously, the one book I write is the novel. Here it is, Bethune, the Only Person Alive in the World, a novel by John Passfield. But I also write a planning notebook as I'm working on the novel. The idea, the research, the planning, the writing, that becomes a full-length book, and that's available for free if you go to johnpassfield.ca and click on notebooks and then click on the Bethune icon. And also I write a journal as I polish the novel, and that's available for free at my website, johnpassfield.ca. Click on journals, click on the icon. Here are 2 passages from the journal the Bethune Journal. I have decided that I want action-filled outer frames for these chapters, as Bethune strikes me as a man of thought, such as compassion for the downtrodden, but more of a man as thought as action. I use hyphens there, thought hyphen as hyphen action, rather than as a contemplative theoretician. Accordingly, he will plunge into life in each chapter in order to try to right the wrongs of society as he sees them. I want these outer frame present moments to be almost nightmare-like in intensity, as if Bethune is up to his nose, at times to his eyebrows, in the element that he seeks to subdue. In all cases, the main character will be thinking in imagery. So prose commentary on the reasons to move from Canada to Spain to China and the successes and failures of each locale will not be given by the main character. Of course, the novel will be without a narrator, so imagery will be the only activator of thought in the reader. A novel of imagery, because we think in imagery, and the novel is Bethune thinking his way through life. Here's another quotation from the journal. The line, "the only person alive in the world," which of course I chose as a subtitle, it's from a line by Dr. Norman Bethune, the historical Dr. Norman Bethune, in a letter. The line, "I am the only person alive in the world," which was written, as I mentioned, by the historical Dr. Norman Bethune, I saw when I read it as a key to an understanding of the myth of Dr. Bethune that I wished to write. I was struck as I worked on this story that the historical character had his best success among people whose language he didn't speak. I have him recalling later in the novel that he taught his assistant to cook his morning egg the way he liked it by using mime. No words, mime. And yet the man is hardly a recluse. He is a very sociable man who's able to charm other people, women in particular, and is a man who dominates a room in all phases of his successive careers. All the words of the novel are the images which the main character has chosen to arrange into a pattern. Presumably the main character is just as intrigued, as am I, by the seeming paradox of the solitary man and the social man, which the imagery of the story seems to present. So, I am the most social man in the world. I am the most solitary man in the world. Isn't that an interesting paradox? Okay, some websites. The novel is available on Amazon for sale. It's also available for sale at my publisher's website, which is rocksmillspress.com. ROCKSMILLSPRESS.com, and there's more information there as well. Now, the two free books, as I mentioned, Notebook and Journal, johnpassfield.ca, johnpassfield.ca. So have a look at those. They're free, as I said. And lastly, thank you for watching this video.